Today, I think the way we choose careers, the way we choose colleges, the way we choose courses in an increasingly complex and changing world is absolutely broken. It's actually scarily broken. The way to decide what you want to do in life is what makes you feel like you're the king of the world in the morning. Like you wake up in the morning and you feel like I'm inevitable and I will win regardless. I never went to study abroad, but my younger brother did. And he went and studied a 18 months master's in the US and I just saw him flip. His starting salary out of campus was $80,000 and he's been in Chicago now, drives a BMW, has a nice house.
So the first product was around financing.
We were building a pipeline, so we had people who had applied for the financing and we were doing the sanctions and all of that. And then March 2020, COVID happens. Now the question was, what do we do? So one option was either we sit tight, wait for this to tide over. The other option was to go big. And I am again a firm believer of this thing that every crisis is actually an opportunity. The 90% of my product engineering design team is now thinking about how do we leverage AI to its hilt.
What's the magical outcome that you hold for Leap?
Leap should become the platform of choice for any career-related question for any kid in the world, and we should become a household name when it comes to thinking through careers.
Was going global, was the mindset right from the beginning?
Something we knew from day one. Once the platform was built, we were very clear that now we can take this platform global. The countries that I look at are broadly that list of 10 to 15 countries, whether it is in India or it is in Nepal or Bangladesh or Vietnam, Cambodia or Malaysia, Nigeria. The use case is the same.
Today's guest is building a global company from India that's reshaping careers worldwide. Arnav Kumar, founder of Leap, turned a personal insight into a mission, operating in 14 countries with a community of over 2 million students. What started during COVID has become the world's first AI-powered full-stack platform for studying abroad. This is the story of how India is building category-defining companies for the world. Let's dive in.
Arnav, excited to have you on the podcast.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Look, you've had an incredible journey. You've been a builder for many years now, and you had, Socratic was your first one, and then you built GoZumo. You went to Elevation to learn investing. Then you founded Leap, which is one of the largest companies currently in India, and not just largest, it's actually could be a profitable or very close to being profitable. Before we get into all of those things, Arnav, we are really byproduct of our environment.
Absolutely.
What really shaped you the most while growing up?
I think I was very lucky to have parents who were academic in nature.
Yeah.
So just to give you some background, my dad is a professor of physics. He just retired this January, and he worked at one place for 40 years, which is unimaginable now for like the current generation. So he started as a professor of physics, ultimately became the HOD of physics. But he's very self-made, extremely self-made. Actually comes from poverty almost. Luckily went to one of these great schools run by the Bihar government called Netarhat School, which is I think a fascinating rabbit hole in itself. Mm-hmm. It's a school built on the Gurukul system, completely essential boys school, completely free. So he was lucky to get a scholarship to that school. So his education was completely free. I think that is why he was able to then pursue education and then sort of pursue physics and then become a professor of physics. So there was a lot of focus on education. Mm-hmm. I think I also come from Ranchi, which is now part of Jharkhand, earlier Bihar, where education is a really big focus. So the only thing I've heard from the very beginning is that education is the only way to have social and economic mobility. Mm-hmm. There's almost no other option, which I think is actually like true. Education is a way out to improve your life, and not just your life, but the life of people around you and the community you have, right? So that I think was drilled into me. I think it's one of those meme-like things that I think when I was born, my dad said that you'll become an engineer, kind of, right? Because he was a professor of physics and he was extremely sharp, but he could not pursue sort of IIT, etc., because he just didn't have the financial backing to afford the fees of even an IIT, right? So that I think was a big focus. My mom is also a PhD. So she comes from a business background, but she has an MSc in physics and then a PhD in education, and she's the entrepreneur in my family. My dad is actually very straight-jacketed. Like he's like very much like a very hard-working employee. Yeah. He doesn't have a strain of entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. My mom, on the other hand, is very entrepreneurial. So she was in this school system called Navodaya Vidyalayas, which is a government-run school system, again boarding school system. So she was a teacher there. Then she got transferred, so she decided not, because she could not leave the kids and move. So she started her own school. So I think the entrepreneurial part sort of comes from her. She started with one school, now she runs 3 schools. It's been, I think, 25, 27 years since she's been running her school. So there was a lot of focus on academics and doing well, and very strong sort of moral values. Like moral values were of utmost importance, especially to my mom. Like she was like very focused on like how character is important and the moral values. So it was, well, we were lower middle class, then we became middle class, and I think now we are probably doing a little better. So those classical Indian moral values were actually quite ingrained, which actually goes both ways. It's funny because my relationship with money was not great, because you know, when you're middle class, you don't have an abundant mindset. It's always a mindset of a little bit of a mindset of scarcity, right? That if you don't do this, what will you do? Agar padhai nahi karoge to like kya karoge, right? I think it was a little bit of that, but I think the positive side of that is that I think it gives you very strong sort of moral values and cultures and personality traits, like fairness, being fair, being polite, being respectful by default. So I think that is, when I think about my childhood, I think those are the big influences that I see. Academics, strong focus on academics. I think my house is filled with books. So every book, Reader's Digest, like anything that you can think of. So I think I was very lucky that I built a habit of reading and a love for reading very, very early on. Like if I didn't have anything, I would just read like Purana newspaper. I would read old newspapers, but I was just almost addicted to reading. So I think that was a big focus. And again, focus on school academics. So I always did well through school. So there was a lot of focus. So I think academics, love for reading, and these strong middle class value system of fairness, equality, being respectful by default, and doing the right thing, and almost having a fear of God. I think that's what I remember the most when I look back to my childhood.
And Arnav, you went to IIT Kharagpur. You remember the moment when you realized that you have to start a company? Was there a trigger point there?
No, so I think it's a long arc. So maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. So I come from Ranchi. I was academically good, but I had zero exposure. And that's one of the problem statements which I think I still think about a lot, and that's why Deep is in the space of careers and careers guidance and how do you build a career. But I think I was very lucky. I was very lucky that I got into IIT, and I, by luck, sheer luck, got into a branch that I liked. So I studied applied mathematics, which had a lot of focus on statistics and computer science. I could have very easily gone and studied something that I was absolutely not interested in. Like for example, because the way we decide what branch to take in IITs is actually not so much based on interest, you're guided more based on rank. Oh, at this rank you will get this. And I didn't have a phenomenal rank, right? I think I'm very lucky I just got into IIT, right? And I could have very easily read something that I had no interest in. I could have read mining engineering, or which might be interesting for someone, but it's not interesting for me. Or geology and geophysics, again, might be interesting for someone, not interesting for me. Very luckily, just by sheer sort of stroke of luck, I got into this department, which was a new department, so people didn't know about it much, so it wasn't competitive. And it was sheer luck. So I went into IIT, and IIT had the first instance, or the first thing I remember about IIT is the imposter syndrome I felt, because everyone was so much smarter, and it just felt that things which are hard for me are easy for them. So I think there was a long arc. Over time, I think IIT was very helpful because it also helped me realize that there are some things I'm uniquely good at, which is primarily English writing, public speaking, and most importantly, I think I can work very well with a large group of people. I can rally people, whether it's people who are seniors, people who are juniors, people who are peers. I think that's what I realized when I went to IIT, because I was, luckily again, I got exposed to a lot of extracurriculars at IIT. So whether it is organizing the fest or sponsorship or training and placement committee or the alumni cell, I got exposed to a lot of things, and I realized I'm actually effortlessly good at some of these things, right? Which has now become one of my guiding principles in life. When people ask me for advice, or young folks, I advise a lot of young folks about career choices and all. I think IIT cemented that thought in my place that, you know, you will always feel as an imposter, in life, and that's the right way to feel about it, because it means that you're in the right rooms where people are smart. But the way to go about life is not to worry about what you don't know. The way to go about life is to massively double down on what you're good at and become the top 1% at that. And I have a strong belief if you become top 1% at anything in the world, it could be something very, very esoteric, it could be calligraphy.
Correct.
If you become like top 1%, you'll have a very, very good life.
Yeah.
So rather than worrying about what you don't know, knowing this is what I'm uniquely good at, and becoming really good at that, I think is the right mantra for life. And I think one of the best things I realized at IIT, because of the whole ecosystem there is so supportive in terms of letting people explore newer things. That is what I realized. So I realized I'm uniquely good at this. And because I was good at these things, again serendipitously, I became the elected president of the student council. So I was elected by 7,000 students to become their elected representatives. So I would represent students in the academic senate, I would represent students in the disciplinary committees. I was the de facto head of all the extracurricular activities that we would do, social and cultural and sports and technology activities. I was heading the training and placement cell as the students elected representative, helping students get the right jobs. And I had a grand time. Like I would wake up every day so excited about, hey, this is what I'll do today. This is a problem I'll work on today. And it was very, very energizing. And so I think that is when I realized that I actually enjoy doing this stuff. Then after IIT, I went to Deutsche because I was in the Department of Mathematics, and Deutsche is a day one company, and it's a very like chased after company and like day zero placement and all of that. So I went to Deutsche. At Deutsche, I became an equity derivatives guy. So I was doing derivatives pricing and all of that. I very quickly realized that while this is great, and I was surrounded by the smartest people. Deutsche used to go to all these campuses and get they had a thing about getting the smartest people, I think. So I was surrounded by brilliant people, and I was learning, the pay was good, the exposure was good. Like we were doing double-digit $1 million trades on an hourly basis often. So which is very exciting for a 23-year-old, right? You're exposed to so much live action. But I very quickly realized that this is not my long-term, like this is not what I really enjoy. Because when I compared that feeling with the feeling I used to have when I was the president of the student council, I was working with like a group of people chasing a goal and trying to improve something. I think that was just so much better, right? So, which again, is one of the philosophies I've like developed in life because of I think these exposures is the way to decide what you want to do in life is what makes you feel like you're the king of the world in the morning. Like you wake up in the morning and you feel like I'm inevitable, right? And I will win regardless. I think if you get that feeling, you have to design a life that gives you that feeling in the morning. And I realized that when I was at IIT and I was doing what I was doing in college leadership, student council, I used to wake up with that. At Deutsche, it was great. The money was great. I used to feel very happy when the paycheck used to hit. And the work was great. It was intellectual. It was challenging. But I wouldn't wake up with that emotion of, hey, I'll conquer the world, right?
Or the energy.
That level of energy, right? So I realized that like life is about energy. Like do things that give you the best emotion and the best energy. And hence very quickly within a year, I realized that banking is not where I want to be long term. It's great, it's lucrative, might be great for someone else. I want to do what gives me most energy. And again, I was very lucky that I've always been very lucky with mentors, right? So I've always somehow found mentors. So there was this guy at Deutsche called Deepak Singhal who was IIT Bombay, he was senior to me. He talked to me and he said, hey, you have a good profile and you clearly feel that you want to do something which is where you have more in control, you wake up with a lot of energy. Do you know there's a world of entrepreneurship out there, right? Like there are startups, and honestly back then I did not know I knew what startups are, but there would be so few, like this is 2011, right? There were so few startups that it wasn't a mainstream, like it wasn't a thought in my head.
Maybe Zomato, Flipkart.
Zomato wasn't also like popular. I think it was only Flipkart. I remember when I was at Deutsche, that is the year I realized, oh, you can order books online. And Flipkart was also just breaking out in 2011, right? So, but Deepak Singhal told me that, hey, you have a good profile. Why don't you try and go to Harvard Business School or something over time? And I said, how will I go to Harvard Business School? He said, you have a good profile. You have to build on it. Why don't you try working at startups? Because I think that will also match your energy. So from there, I went to a startup called Urban Touch, which was founded by Abhishek Goyal, who now runs Traction. It was backed by Axel and Tiger. So I went there and also one of the early employees. And there again I had a ball. Like there again I used to wake up with the same energy every morning, like this is a problem to solve, this is what competition is doing, this is what we'll do. So I had a grand time there. So when I was moving out of Urban Touch, by that time it was very clear that this is my game. So company building, working in startups is my game. And I think, so it wasn't one moment, I think it was realization that I'm uniquely good at some things and I want to double down on that.
Yeah.
It was a realization that working on certain kind of open-ended problem statements where I have a lot of autonomy and where I can move things and I can move the needle is something that gives me real energy. And working with people, rallying a team gives me real energy. So I think it was the realization of that. And then after Urban Touch, I had this option of what next. And then it was very, very, very organic and intuitive to me that I should try doing a startup. So that's how the whole startup journey started.
Yeah, yeah. No, love the framework. I think it's more around, you should be doing something that feels play to you.
Yeah.
And work for others.
Yeah.
And then no one can really compete with you because for you it's just a play.
Yeah.
And Arnav, post Urban Touch, you mentioned that the most energy you were getting was from starting something. What was that first startup for you? What were the learnings? And then maybe quickly we can get into, you decided to get into venture capital, and then we'll come to the most exciting thing these days for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, as I said, education has a big sort of has been a big mover in my life. It's been a big deal. So someone asked me this question saying, hey, if you had $50 million, what would you do? And my intuitive answer was that I'll start India's best boarding school. It's a very idealistic answer. So that is where I started. Then I realized that is probably not the best business model, or maybe that's not where a startup should be born. So then I sort of made it more, I figured what can be a smaller MVP, what other problem I can attack as a startup today. And I ultimately ended up building a company called Socratic, which the name is derived from the Socratic method of learning, which is inquiry-based learning. And the idea was how to get kids to become producers of knowledge. So what we would do is we would give homework to students, which would force them to do open-ended research and then explain that concept in their own words, right? And they would, the end output would be a multimedia sort of output, like a talking presentation of sorts. So the focus was how do we get kids to become active learners and creators rather than rote learners, right? So that's the first company we built. So very, very idealistic. I think we didn't understand what product is, what go-to-market is, and we didn't realize that go-to-market is actually more important than the product, right? And we were trying to sell through schools, which is extremely hard. It's probably the hardest thing to do. So that happened. After a couple of years, we realized that this is actually not going to scale at all. And that is when we then went back to the drawing board. We started another company called GoSumo, which is almost like Spinny, if you know it, the used car sort of. So we were trying to, again, we were very idealistic, and we said we want to be the Flipkart for used cars, which means that it will be a completely touchless process. We will list the cars, we will give a warranty, we will make sure that the car is in great shape, and you can just order it online and sort of it will come to you, right? And again, it was a great learning experience because you think that this is the world, this is how the world should be, and the utopian view of the world. But the lesson I learned from that is that even if you have a utopian view of the world, which might be possible, you have to come down to where the market's current status is. So for example, if this is where the market is and this is your utopian vision, you can't build this. You can only build this. Like markets can only make small jumps. Markets can't make big jumps, right? And I think we were very sort of utopian in our view. So it scaled well in Bangalore.
Yeah.
Because Bangalore is where people adopt these things early, and you can buy a car online, it will come to you. So we started out well. We had a great team. We raised capital, and the going was good. I think Bangalore was great. Bombay also worked well. But as we expanded, we realized that the rest of India doesn't work this way. In India, a used car is not a commodity. In the US, a used car is a commodity because you can't go to work if you don't have a car, especially if you're living in Chicago and it snows and the weather and all of that and public transport is bad. You almost need a car to survive, right? And hence, even a 7th resale car is sold to the 8th person. In India, it's actually still a very emotional purchase. We were shocked that when we were selling used cars, people would come with their wives and parents and Panditji to buy a car. So again, that doesn't scale online. So we realized that that doesn't scale online. So that's, and after Kozuma, I joined Elevation. Elevation was an investor in a company, and they were very sort of gracious to offer me an opportunity to come and sort of work with them as a sort of investment professional. So for the next couple of years, I worked at Elevation. I used to look at consumer internet startups. And I think Elevation was a really good finishing school for me. Given that I have never done an MBA, I haven't been a consultant, I haven't learned frameworks, right? I think Elevation was a really good finishing school for me to understand. As a builder, I only used to understand how to create products and create value. I think Elevation also taught me how to think about capturing value. How does the market look at companies? How does the market value companies and what's important? And a lot of softer lessons that I learned by looking at phenomenal founders that I met and the phenomenal team that I was working with at Elevation. So a lot of learnings from sort of Elevation there for 2 years. But I always sort of knew that it's a tour of duty. I'll go there as a finishing school. Ultimately, I always wanted to build a company because I think that's what gives me the most energy and the best emotion and the best hormones, probably. So then after 2 years, it was time to start thinking of what next. And again, I gravitate towards education because maybe again
Looks
childhood.
like you're born for building in education.
Sorry?
I'm saying it looks like you were born for building in education.
I don't know if I was born for it, but it's something that I relate with. And again, one framework I have when thinking about ideas is, I think one unbeatable trait is what can you obsess over. I think especially now that building is getting easier with all the AI tools and code is being written by AI and all of that. As building gets easier, I think the advantage that founders have over others is, can you obsess about that problem? Are you more curious about that problem than anyone else? And I think I'm genuinely curious about education, career, outcomes. How do you build a great career? How do you achieve greatness in what you... I think these are just things that I naturally gravitate towards, think about, I'm curious about, and I can obsess over. So that was my framework when I was looking at it, right? Because there were many ideas, like this is 2019, right? So there was Web3 and like there was like fintech and there was like a lot of, but based on my past experiences of founding 2 companies and generally my experience of life, this time I was very clear that I'll do what I can obsess over for decades. I wake up in the morning and I'm still curious. I'm curious to think about the problem. So, for example, I can never build a gaming startup. You can convince me that gaming is so great and you will get 200 MAU and like gaming companies make so much money that it's unfathomable the amount of money they make, right? But I can never build a gaming company because I don't obsess about that problem. So that's how Leap happened.
So you had the framework in mind. What was your next step? Did you call up people? You were already talking to somebody who you were going to start the company with. You know, walk us through that journey and the early days. What was the thesis in the beginning, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So, when I was at Elevation, I think it was a time when education companies were starting to inflect. So, Byju's was doing very well. Unacademy we had funded while at Elevation, right? And these companies were growing really well because Geo had happened and content suddenly was available and people would consume this content and people were paying for content. In fact, I think education is one of the most misunderstood sectors. If you look at the spend of India's spend, I think it would be groceries and then education. Like education is a massive spend, right? And I think before that, the business model wasn't clear or the delivery model wasn't clear. That how do you give value to a user? People want to pay for education. Education is probably the one sector where people pay happily and proudly. And if I've spent money on education, I have sent my kid to the US, I'll proudly say that my kid studies in the US, right? So education is very, very misunderstood, I feel, and it's still very misunderstood. But we were seeing these companies inflect, and that gave me the confidence that probably this is the right time. Like finally the time, the promise of education has arrived, thanks to the democratization of accessibility of online content, right? So then education again I was drawn to naturally, and then this made it even more lucrative for me to think deeply about education. One thing I was quite clear was that I want to do it in higher education. But what happens in school is that there are too many stakeholders.
Yeah.
There's the student who is the user, there's the teacher who is the influencer, then the school is the third influencer, and the peer is the parent, right? So that becomes a little bit messy. So I was like, I want to be in a space where the decision maker and the user and the peer is largely the same. So hence I gravitated towards higher education. The one model that I really liked back then was the Lambda school model. It was the income share agreement that you don't charge anything upfront and you get a job and then you pay a percentage of your sort of income as the fee to the education program, right? So I dabbled with it for I think close to 4 months. That was very powerful. That concept of income share agreements was actually very powerful and lucrative to me. So I spent 3, 4, 5 months going deeper in that sort of a rabbit hole. Did a lot of user interviews, tried to talk to a lot of companies, etc. But I realized that that model won't really work in India. I realized that it's not going to work. There are systemic reasons, and I can get into it sort of later. But I realized income share agreements won't work in India, right? So then, as I went deeper into the research, I realized that this is a segment of foreign education or global education, right? And there were 2, 3 things that led me to this. One was very interestingly, so I never went to study abroad, but my younger brother did, right? And I was very lucky to go to an sort of IIT, but IITs are intensely competitive. And my brother didn't go to an IIT. And if you don't go to an IIT, very often you will end up in one of the sort of IT companies, right? The big IT companies, right? And my brother was in a IT company for several years. And I think his compensation even after 3, 4 years was probably in the 5 lakh, 6 lakh range, right? And my brother is actually, I think he's smarter than me. At chess, at video games, at pretty much every game, he's actually smarter than me. So I think he finally realized that he has to do something and this is not looking great. And he went and studied a 18 months masters in the US, and I just saw him flip like this. And he wasn't very serious about sort of education and career earlier, right? The same guy, when he went to the US and started studying, he studied at University of Illinois in Chicago. That guy, when I spoke to him, he would tell me about Andrew and his lectures and what he's doing in sort of machine learning. And I was like, it was like I'm talking to a completely different person, right? And he graduated sort of from campus. He did TA-ships, reduced his sort of tuition cost, got an internship, got a full-time job. His starting salary out of campus was, I think, was $80,000, right? And he's been in Chicago now and drives a BMW, has a nice house. I am now the black sheep of my family. My parents want to sort of go there for vacations, not come here. But I don't think my brother would have that career, anything close to that career trajectory if he hadn't made that move. So for better or sort of worse, I think it really worked out for him. And what I realized was that a lot more people are now open to a global career and a global education. If you have a great global career in India, great. If you can have a great global career in the US, great. So I think his journey sort of was an eye-opener for me because we produce like millions of graduates every year, and getting high quality, high income jobs for them is actually, I think, a very worthy problem statement to work on, right? I personally don't care whether it's in India, Japan, US. I think like wherever the opportunity is, our job is to sort of make those opportunities available to the people, and then people, it's capitalism. People will figure out like what works best for them. So I think that was a big influence. Very luckily, while I was doing all of this research on higher education, global education, I had a conversation with my now co-founder Vaibhav. And Vaibhav and I are someone who go back many years. We met in 2005. So he is 2 years senior to me from Kharagpur. And again, he's one of the smartest finance people I met. So anyone on campus also, who wanted to discuss anything about finance, would go to Vaibhav. He graduated, went to Deutsche. He was in Bombay, then he was in Hong Kong, then he was in Sydney. He spent a good 8 sort of years at Deutsche. Then came back, became one of the first employees at Capital Float, India's first tech NBFC. Then was a MD at Incred. And serendipitously, he was also looking at this market, but from a financing product lens. Can I build a 10x better financing product for these students who want to study in these like global schools across the world, right? So I think it was very serendipitous. And I and Vaibhav used to keep discussing ideas.
So you were always in touch with Vaibhav.
We were always in touch with Vaibhav. And when I was doing the income share agreement, I had reached out to him to ask, how do I structure this thing legally and financially in India? So he knew and he was helping me. When I moved from that and started looking at this segment, I think maybe that is when he realized that he's also looking at it. And I think that's how we came together. And when you look at Leap now, we are a combination of edtech and fintech. So we are an embedded financing company where we have a lot of what a traditional edtech company would do or an education company would do. But we also do a lot of what a financing company would do. So that's how it came together and Leap was born.
Yeah. And that was back in 2019.
End of 2019, yeah.
So the first product was around financing, and then maybe walk us through the next steps. You know, what was the next product and the product after that, and also Arnav, when was was there a moment or like a customer you closed, or let's say a product you launched and you realized, man, this is gonna be something massive?
Okay, so the first product we launched was a financing product. Primarily because we realized that we can build a 10x better product here, right? And I think one of my philosophies is that the solution that you're offering to the world as a startup can't be incrementally better. It has to be significantly better. And we were able to come up with a significantly better product for sort of financing for students, which would reduce the cost of borrowing for them significantly. So that's the hero product we launched with, right? And the product was doing very well because if it's a good product, it will sort of move itself, right? So everything was going great. So we incorporated end of 2019. 2020 February is when we went to the US, I remember, to do some partnerships and US lending licenses and all of that. And we were building a pipeline. So we had people who had applied for the financing and we were doing the sanctions and all of that, sanction letters and all. And then March 2020, COVID happens, right? And so for that year, then it was mostly like, no one's going out this year, right? Like there are no visas, like borders are shut, right? So you can't do financing. And as a financing company, you only make money when you actually do financing, right? Either through processing fees or the income fees, interest fees, right? So then the question was, what do we do? So we had raised a round of financing before we started. So very luckily, we raised from Peak 15. Earlier they were called Sequoia, now Peak 15. So Ashish from Peak 15 was our first backer. So we raised a 5 million round from sort of Peak 15. Now the question was, what do we do? So one option was either we sit tight, wait for this to tide over. The other option was to go big, right? And I am again a firm believer of this thing that every crisis is actually an opportunity. So I think by nature, Vaibhav and I are quite aggressive in the sense that we don't like to. So one of Nike's principles is always on offense. So that's one of the things that we really believe in, that as a startup you have to be on offense. So we realized to actually move upstream. So the way to think about it is financing happens at the end of a user's journey, right? So as a user, you'll first start researching about studying in the school that you want to study. What should I study? Which country should I study? Which school should I study? Which course should I study? What will the budget, etc., etc. You first narrow that down. So there's a lot of research. Then you'll probably spend some time in test prep, because you'll either do the GRE or the GMAT or the IELTS or the TOEFL or Duolingo, one of the exams you will sort of do, right? Then you will ideally then have to work with a coach to build your profile, make the best application in the right sort of courses, write your statement of purpose, figure out your scholarship applications, scholarship essays, all of that happens, and then you get an admit. Once you get an admit is actually when you start thinking about financing, and then you will do a visa, and then you will do the accommodation, everything, and fly out. So when we started the company also, we were very clear that we don't want to be a restaurant Swiggy. We want to be Swiggy, which means that we want to own the primary relationship with the student. I don't want a scenario where the student has done the first 5 steps with someone and now I am coming into the picture, because that person will have so much leverage or influence over the person. And instead of me, it will be, they can direct them to someone else. And while my product is better today, I think over time products can reach parity. If I build a really good product, someone will build it over 2 years. So while it's great to have a good product, I think it's more important to have great distribution and have a direct relationship with your customer. So we always knew that we would move upstream. We're starting with financing, then we'll move upstream, right? I think COVID, when we realized that financing businesses, nothing's going to happen for at least 10, 12 months. We just said, let's start moving upstream. And so then we have then moved upstream from there. So do financing. Before that, there is college admissions and counseling. Before that, there's test prep. Before that, there's community and research and all of that. We just very quickly moved upstream, and that is why today, if you look at it, we are the world's first full stack platform. If you are thinking about studying abroad, building a career abroad, everything that you need, right, from research, community, test prep, counseling, scholarships, financing, after financing, visa support, accommodation, credit cards, debit cards, insurance. Now we are sort of getting into careers, like how do we help you get a great career outcome after you study there, right?
Yeah.
So we are the world's first horizontal platform for all things study abroad. So that's what happened. Now to your point about where we realize, hey, there's something very interesting here, is when we realize, so we always thought financing is where we'll make most of our revenue and profits. And that is how we had modeled the business, that, you know, when you start out the company, you make Excel models saying, hey, this is, and we are very clear that we can build a large company just by doing financing. What happened is when we started moving upstream, we realized there's actually so many problems to solve here. And there is so much propensity for the user to pay. And the user is actually so annoyed with the existing solutions that we realize, hey, we have actually hit a jackpot. Because that just meant that all the projections that we had done, the revenue pool and the TAM is actually 10 times larger. So I think that is what happened.
Yeah.
So I can call it serendipity, but I can also call it, you know, the company making its own luck, because we took that call. The other call could be just sit on your sort of bum, play defensive, wait for it to tide out. And I think if we hadn't moved that fast, I think 2 years later the opportunity would have gone. Because other people sort of who started after us or who were there sort of before us, they would have caught on to the opportunity. But I think because we moved very fast, I think we are still like many, many miles ahead of pretty much everyone else when it comes to building this tech and platform sort of for this whole use case.
Yeah. And also, you know, as we were discussing earlier, Arnav, that, you know, I've recently started a new series where I'm covering companies which are building in India and for the world.
Yeah.
And Leap is a great example.
Yeah.
I think you are in what, 10 to 12 countries now?
Now we are in 14 countries.
14 countries,
Yeah.
so maybe next month you'll be
Yeah,
in the 15th.
Yeah.
And was going global was the mindset right from the beginning? And also just walk us through how did you identify your first market and kind of like a playbook for the next generation of entrepreneurs in India who are thinking going global from day zero.
Got it. So I think we are unique in some ways because even when we started, I remember in our first pitch deck, we had clearly written that the largest company in this space will be built out of India. And the reason for that is if you look at student migration, where do students come from, right? Which is our business, right? Like business based on where do students come from and then helping those students. That is India, Southeast Asia largely, right? That is where those students are. So we always like believe from the very beginning that there's no business for some other company or from some other part of the world to be the largest business. The largest business in this space will be built from India. So that was something we knew from day one, and that I think is unique to us because I think we are in a business which is actually a very high lifetime value, high gross margin business. It almost mirrors software margins, right? But the engine is India. For many companies, while they start in India and then become global and do a great job of that, what happens is ultimately a large chunk of their revenue comes from, let's say, the US or Europe. We knew that in our case, it's actually a unique opportunity where the bulk of the revenue will always come from the emerging markets. But it will have the kind of LTV and the gross margins that the best businesses in the world have, right? So we knew from the very beginning. The way we thought about global expansion was, again, I think we have benefited a lot from our product and engineering DNA. So we have never tried to solve a problem without thinking about what is the product and the engineering around it. And that's why in 2 years, so we started in 2020, by 2022, the platform was built. So we knew that the use case for a user, whether it is in India or it is in Nepal or Bangladesh or Vietnam or Cambodia or Malaysia or Nigeria,
Yeah.
or let's say Latin American countries or middle, the use case is the same. The use case is exactly the same. I'm in my current country, I'm studying here, I'm looking for a global career and a global education, and hence the countries that I look at are broadly that list of 10 to 15 countries. So we actually, once the platform was built, we were very clear that now we can take this platform global. So it was primarily, so the playbook was build the product. Once the product is sort of ready, look at a country, identify a team,
Yeah.
and open the platform for that country. So so now our playbook is actually we can launch like 3 countries every month.
Yeah.
So that's how
So the
we
playbook
expanded.
is set now, and Arnav, talking about the trends, look, a lot of things have changed over
Yeah.
the last few years.
Yeah.
Earlier, look, the norm, I mean, it was pretty straightforward, the playbook. You know, you'll either go to US, most preferred was US, Canada or UK. And given how, you know, the sentiments are and the policies around the world, things are changing now. What have you changed the biggest shift in terms of students from India moving to other countries? What kind of countries they're moving towards?
Yeah. No, so absolutely. Like, students are extremely smart.
Yeah.
Like, these students are extremely smart, and that's one of the things. So one of the things we love about these students is that they are extremely smart, right? So they are also very focused on the return on investment, the return on time, the return on opportunity cost, right? So they generally have a really good sense of, you know, where will I get my best career outcome. So for example, right now we are seeing massive interest in Germany. We are seeing a lot of interest in sort of Ireland. UK remains very, very strong, but we are just pleasantly surprised by how much interest there is in these new geographies. Germany is through the roof.
Yeah.
Ireland is extremely popular. We are also seeing a lot of movement in France, but the base is much smaller. Italy, same story. We are seeing movement, but the base is smaller. We are seeing a lot of interest in New Zealand, Japan, Korea. These are 2 countries which are now sort of becoming more popular because they have openly announced that, you know, they want more international students, right? So I think these sort of countries, some of these, so earlier it used to be these 3-4 countries. Now I think it's a basket of almost 15 countries that students are choosing from based on, and I think it is also a little bit because of the industry has gotten more mature, and now platforms are available for students also to do research. Like 10 years ago, there was hardly any way for students to do research. They were like, the only way was to go offline and talk to someone, and the offline guy would probably also be restricted by their own knowledge. So if they know one country well, they will like talk about that country.
Yeah.
I think the beauty today is that students are much smarter, so they can do their own research. And with ChatGPT and sort of everything, research is just getting easier and easier and better, right? But it's also because of platforms like Leap that we have built, where students can actually come, talk to students who have already sort of gone to these countries, get a sense, build that sort of conviction, then talk to sort of counselor who specializes in that country. So for example, we have counselors who specialize in every country. So we are able to do the matchmaking really well.
Yeah.
Hey, if this is your profile, this is what you're thinking about, these are the 2 countries you should sort of consider, and then we'll tell you more about the countries and help you figure out how to take the next steps, right? So I think because of platforms like Leap and because research ubiquitously is more easily accessible now, I think we are seeing the choices for students expand, not just in terms of like countries, but also in the kind of courses students are doing, right? So like again, 10 years ago, most of this was, okay, you want to study engineering, so you'll sort of go abroad, or maybe MBA, so you'll go abroad. Today students, like if you're a psychology student, you're thinking about how do I sort of study in a course which is linked to psychology and marketing. So psychology with marketing is a very, very popular combination for like these students. If you're an economics major, you're not thinking about how do I find a course which is a mix of economics and financial engineering, right? And I think when you start thinking global, especially when it comes to master's education, I think when you start thinking global, a lot of these opportunities of studies start opening up, which just are not available if you're only looking in your host sort of current country.
Yeah.
So I think we are seeing students now go deeper into their interest. If I'm interested in economics, I'm now able to find a course which has economics, but also has sort of a lot of financial technology and financial engineering component. That's a great choice for me. If I'm studying journalism, again, Like I'm trying to find a course which is more in public policy or journalism or maybe even content creation or sort of social media marketing, right? So I think those options are now available to students, and students are actually going very deep into that, which is actually very heartening.
Yeah.
The kind of research these students are doing is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And similarly, like students who like chemical engineering, right? Now students are doing research chemical engineering. How do I get into Tesla's this division? What course should I study that will help me get into the battery division of like Tesla? So I think that is very, very heartening.
Yeah, very interesting. And look, Arnav, you mentioned somewhere, I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, 90% or more of your team is actually thinking about how do we build Leap as an AI first company.
Yeah.
Why are you thinking towards that direction, and what does that really mean?
Sure. So when I meant 90%, I meant the 90% of my product engineering design team is now thinking about how do we leverage AI to its hilt, right? I think there's some things which are unique to Leap, and there are some things which are general. So let me start with the general thought. I personally think all founders should be running two versions of companies. Like I started this company in 2020 when ChatGPT was probably not publicly sort of available, or probably definitely wasn't as good, right? All of these coding tools, Claude and like tools for like designers and like marketers were just not available. So the way to build companies was very different. I think if I started building Leap today, I would actually build it in a manner where it would be far more efficient, far smarter, would probably require fewer people, and everyone would actually be 3x more productive given the tools that they have, and there would be a brain inside the company which would have all the context that I currently have in my head. Right now, it's probably Vaibhav and I and Rajan, who's our third co-founder, maybe all three of us have the context. I think if I build that company in 2025, it would be a far more efficient company, far more profitable company, and a company which would be able to do 10 times more with the same resources. So I think, and I feel if I don't build that company, someone else will.
Yeah.
Because the world is full of hungry, smart people who are like figuring out how to build the next version of the world, right? So I think all founders have to build two versions of the company. So we are just trying to build that version before anyone else builds that. So that's more of a general philosophy. Now, I think for Leap, it's even more important because ultimately Leap is a company which is in the business of reducing information search cost. So student has an aspiration and they have 1,000 questions, right? Which course, which country, financing, will I get a study permit? Will I get a work permit? Can I take my spouse? How can I reduce my cost of tuition? Will I get a TA-ship? Will I get an RA-ship? Is this course better or should I take this allied course? Oh, I got one admit in this higher ranked university, but I like the course in this lower ranked university. What should I do? They have a million questions, right? PhD versus masters or integrated master. What should I do? So students have a lot of questions. Leap as a business, our core job is to help students get the best answer with the least effort.
Yeah.
So our business is a business of reducing information search cost and the cognitive cost of that search. And that is precisely what AI is phenomenally good at. AI is phenomenally good at getting all the information in the world.
Yeah.
It has perfect memory and it has infinite memory and it can draw correlations and patterns. AI is a technology perfectly suited to my use case.
Yeah.
So that I think then becomes even more important for us to make sure that we are an AI native company and we are leveraging the best of what AI has to offer, because like our ambition is like we always compare ourselves with the best in the world. We are not happy if we are doing well. We are extremely impatient, extremely paranoid. I think I believe in that sort of philosophy of Andrew Grove that only the paranoid survive, and you have to be paranoid about your business. You have to be figuring out if someone disrupts my business, I have to be the one disrupting my business. So in some sense, I'm trying to figure out how do I disrupt my own business using AI. So that's why a lot of work is going in that direction.
Yeah, you are super excited about AI.
Absolutely. It's
that
magical.
we can see. So with that, Arnav, one or two apps, AI apps that you've been using these days, you just can't live your life without. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be just work. It could be personal as well.
Yeah. I actually like ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT the most.
Yeah.
And I use it in many ways. So that is one. The other app that I use a lot is an app that we have built internally, which is an app which, so it's a very funny example. It's an app that helps me review scripts. So I'm actually very hands-on. So if someone is writing a script for, let's say, a YouTube video or an ad, I usually review it. So the app that I'm using sort of a lot every day is an app that earlier I used to do the review. Now if someone sends me a script, I just send it to the app and it tells the person what is the score of the overall script and what is better, not better. The other app I use a lot is another one internally, which, so actually we do thousands of conversations with students every day, thousands of conversations. And now we have an app that tells me for every conversation, was the student leaned in? Was the coach or the counselor did they speak with empathy? How much time did the student speak? How much time did the coach speak? What were the unanswered questions that the student asked that the counselor does not know? And this tool actually is very useful because it tells me what the student is asking, what my counselor is not asking, like answering well. And it also becomes a feedback to my content engine, because then I take that and build my content strategy around it. So I think external apps, I mostly use ChatGPT. I sometimes use Whisperflow. I think these are the two I use the most because I don't code actively now. So the other tools that we use are all tools we have built internally. So we have a tool for script review, we have a tool for UX. So we can just prompt and build the UX. So that's a tool that we sort of use internally that I think is built on VO, like Versal's products. So I use a lot of enterprise products. The consumer products I use are mostly ChatGPT and Whisperflow. These are the two I use the most.
Arnav, before we get into our last part, what's the magical outcome that you hold for Leap, for yourself and for your team?
Leap should become the platform of choice for any career related question for any kid in the world, and we should become a household name when it comes to thinking through careers. Like today, I think the way our kids are thinking about choosing a career in an increasingly complex and changing world is absolutely broken. Like the way we choose careers, the way we choose colleges, the way we choose courses is actually scarily broken. Like there is very little regard for, hey, what are you uniquely good at, and what career really aligns with that, and what's the best path. I'm shocked at and I ask students a lot when I meet them, why did you choose this? It's either, oh, my neighbor went there, so I have gone there,
told me.
or someone told me, so I went there, and I just feel it's such humongous loss of human potential. That I think that's one problem that I obsess over, and that's a problem I can obsess over for a very long time. And that is the problem I would love to solve for the world, that we become a household name. We almost become a coach in every household, where if a kid is taking a decision around careers, Leap should be a participant in that conversation and should be the guiding light in that in that conversation. That's my ultimate vision for Leap.
Yeah. I wish Leap existed when I was thinking through my career in US. In fact, I remember, so I got into a college in US. I asked a friend of mine, what major should I take? So he said just commerce management so that's how I kind of decided my career choice. And also, in terms of applying to colleges in US, of course, I went on a tennis scholarship. Arnav, things have become so much easier now. There are companies who kind of walk you through. I'm talking about for athletes. Step by step, they'll tell you how to apply, where to apply, and almost everything. During my time, I created a video, put it on YouTube, just randomly emailed 40, 50 colleges, and that's how that happened for me. But we've come a long way now, and I'm happy for you that you're getting to do your life's work. Look, Arnav, we know you, as an entrepreneur. That's your DNA. You've been an investor as well. What do your friends know you for? Who are you outside of work?
Who am I outside of work? Actually, I'm one of those. I actually believe in this philosophy that I think Mark Zuckerberg's sister or someone sort of made popular that at one point of time you can only focus on 3 things in life. I don't know whether the number was 3 or 4, but I think that number is 3.
Yeah.
And for me, it's actually work, family, and health. So I think we will hopefully all live with the medical innovations. We'll actually live long lives, and I think it's very important to be healthy, to make sure that that life is good and not painful. So I think work, family, and health are my top 3 priorities. Everything else I treat as a good to have. I would like to think that, but one thing I think I'm genuinely grateful for is that, as I mentioned, I have gotten a lot of good mentors. Serendipitously, I've gotten a lot of good mentors. So while I don't think I hang out enough with my friends, one thing I try to make sure that if anyone ever needs any input, I should be immediately available. And I think being immediately available and responding quickly is one of the ways you can be respectful towards everyone. So I try to do that. So I hope that, like, the way my friends think about me is someone who is trying their best to build a life that I want, but at the same time, sort of, I'm there when someone needs me and I'm respectful. I actually don't hang out much. Like, I think after work, my life is actually quite boring outside of work. I think after work, family and health, my 4th priority is books, reading and writing. I love reading and writing. Everything else, like friends, travel, experiences, are a good to have. It happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, I don't stress over it. So that's my life today. Hopefully at some point of time, friends and community will be more important. I generally want to become more involved in the community. Hopefully over time, that's something I will be able to do.
Arnav, look, you're gonna have a hard time now because I'll be pinging you all the time.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that I get a response.
You will get a response like very, very quickly.
And Arnav, I have a question around career advice.
Sure.
How do you identify mentors for yourself, and how do you nurture that relationship?
Sure. So I am a process-driven guy. So usually my playbook is I look and I scout for people when I want to learn something very specific. So for example, if I want to learn marketing, I will figure out who are the best people at that type of marketing, and I'll reach out to them. And generally people are kind, so they will respond. So I'll meet them, and with 1 or 2 of them, you feel an exceptional connection. You just feel that this person has a spike or is uniquely very, very good at something, right? Once I find that person, I never let go of that relationship. And I actually have a list of inspiring people. So I think inspiration is something that you have to keep refilling. So I maintain a list of people who inspire me. Now these could be people who inspire me because they are smart at something, or they could be exceptionally kind, or they could be exceptionally altruistic. So I maintain that list of people, and whenever I meet someone new who I find inspiring, I add them to the list, and I try that at least once a year I try to connect with them, and I try my best that, you know, at least on occasions like Diwali, I do express my gratitude that they are like a part of my life and they've chosen to sort of be a part of my life, and I learn so much from them. That's how I do it. So it's mostly serendipitous that, you know, I meet people to learn from them, and a certain percentage of those people I feel that there's a connection that I want to really nurture for life, and then I nurture that through my list.
Through your list and methodically. I think you wrote about this.
I wrote about it.
I remember that now. And one last one, Arnav. If you could invite 3 folks, dead or alive, for a dinner, who would they be and why?
I think it would be Shah Rukh Khan,
Yeah.
Barack Obama, who would the third one be?
And why Shah Rukh and Obama?
I think Shah Rukh Khan is exceptional. Like, I think when it comes to energy, charm, wit, depth, articulation, so I think there are very few people who are exceptionally good at what they do, and they are at the peak of their sort of chosen careers while being exceptionally well-rounded,
Yeah.
while being well-read, articulate, witty,
Amazing sense of humor,
respectful. And I think what people say about, like, I think that's common between Shah Rukh Khan and Obama probably, that if you talk to them, you will feel like you're the center of their universe, which I think is a very, very rare quality, especially for someone who is as big and popular, etc. People generally get arrogant as they become bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
right? So I think for both, I think words are very important to me, articulation and publicly being able to articulate your thoughts publicly and rally people around you. I think is very important to me, or I find that very attractive. I think both Shah Rukh Khan and Barack Obama are exceptional speakers, and they are able to rally people, and I think they also both have a warmth that very few people have when they are so successful. I can't sort of really think of a third person. If you give me some time, I'll think about it, but these are, I think the three
Maybe
of us
an
will have a
athlete.
good dinner.
Yeah, got it. Well, Arnav, it was fun. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and just really walking us through your journey so far, and what you've been up to at Leap, and how do you see Leap evolving and what it ends up becoming. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun for me. The first time I'm doing this, and I think you're onto something very special. I'm so glad that you do so much, the podcast and the fund and everything. It was very, very good to meet you, and I hope that we'll always stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.